Lately, it's been hard for me to ignore the number of notable studios and publishers that are releasing games that feel very rushed and incomplete. To name a few from recent memory, we've got Cyberpunk 2077, which released in such a poor state that it was actually delisted on the PlayStation Store. There was the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy's Definitive Edition, which was just full of bugs and sloppy AI upscaling. There were the widespread performance issues at launch with the Callisto Protocol, the PC port of The Last of Us was a total mess, and most recently, Jedi Survivor has had a pretty rocky release on PC. And just a few months back, I put out a video chronicling the various bugs and issues with Alan Wake Remastered. Now that's a game that I actually pre-ordered and was very excited for. I'm a huge fan of Alan Wake and Remedy, and it was decent enough at launch, but it actually saw new bugs introduced by patches that were applied to the game to fix various bugs, and it's been a pretty big mess in my opinion. Now, as much as this might seem like a modern problem, there's been plenty of broken and unfinished or buggy games released over the past 40 or so years. The big difference today is that pretty much every modern gaming platform is connected to the internet, and so various fixes and patches can be applied to a game after it releases, which has led to a culture where it feels like releasing a game in its final, complete form is not as much of a priority as it may have been in the past. And sometimes that really sucks, at least for the players. The GTA Definitive Edition, which was notoriously buggy at launch, had sales figures that, quote, significantly exceeded Rockstar's expectations. While the exact sales figures haven't been released, journalists have been able to extrapolate some estimates from various investors' presentations, and it seems like that GTA Definitive Edition actually sold somewhere between 10 and 14 million copies. So even though everybody was roasting it for being a buggy mess, it clearly didn't really hurt the sales all that much. I mean, it probably could have done better, but 10 to 14 million copies is nothing to sneeze at. It's kind of crazy when you look at stuff like this, but clearly the bugs and overall quality did not stop people from buying that game, and I admit, I bought that game. But sometimes releasing a game unfinished can be a really good thing for players and developers. There's a lot of instances of games being released in early access and using player experiences and feedback to eventually release a much better version of that game. There's also a lot of instances of games being released in early access and then never actually getting finished, which again sucks for players, but it also sucks for all the game developers who now have to deal with the early access stigma, because as a culture, we do tend to focus on those negative experiences and examples rather than focusing on the positives and success stories in situations like that. I don't want to put any specific devs or publishers on blast right now, but I've definitely bought some early access games that I felt burnt by, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who starts to feel a little skeptical about picking up a game once I find out that it's still in early access. But there are ways to get the benefits of early access, the player feedback and everything, without having to deal directly with the stigma of a Steam early access release. A little while back, I was on Twitter, and I saw a video post by the developer of a game called Mr. Sleepy Man, and I'll show it to you here.
What does it even mean to release your game? I mean, if people can pay to play it, isn't it technically released? You don't have to ship a game to get it into people's hands anymore. So why are we still playing by those rules? Anyways, if you want to play Mr. Sleepy Man, ask me about it in the comments.
This questioning of what it means to release a game today got me really thinking about the full scope of different methods and avenues for getting a game into players' hands. For instance, for the past year or so, I've been a supporter of a game called Beyond Sunset. I picked up the demo a long while back, and I got on Patreon right afterward to support the game because I was just wowed by the demo and I really wanted to see it continue and grow into something bigger, and It has been. Through that Patreon support, I've been able to get access to early builds of the game and a lot of different behind the scenes and lore updates that they've been giving directly to subscribers and supporters. So, I mean, that's one avenue for doing it, but I wanted to learn more about how it works for different types of games and sort of what the philosophy is behind it and, sort of the ins and outs of doing this sort of direct to supporters early access, or I don't want to say early access because it's not early access, but it's, direct support, and it is early access to a game before the official commercial release. And so I reached out to the developer of Mr. Sleepy Man for a quick interview, and this is what happened. So check it out.
Hello, my name is Devin Santee, and I make a video game called Mr. Sleepy Man. It's a game about this sleepy guy, and he's up to no good, and you jump around and stuff.
I'm curious to know, when did you start working on the game?
It's kind of a gray line because I came up with the character in like mid 2019, and that's when I was first starting how to do game development. So I knew nothing about coding, nothing about 3D modeling. Can't really draw. Like even like just like that was like I got my first tablet just trying to learn how to draw, and Mr. Sleepy Man was just one of my practice things that I came up with. Like, I'll draw a guy who's sleepy. And then that kind of just became the game. So I technically started working on the game in 2019, but I would say 95% of the stuff that I was working on back then was just thrown out because I just knew nothing about game development. I was doing everything wrong. So you could say I've been working on it for 4 years. But at the same time, I would say like most of the actual progress of the game has been like mid 21. It's always difficult to answer that question, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, projects like this tend to go through a bunch of different iterations, and it's like, where is the actual starting point when the idea comes through so many different forms in your life?
Yeah, I didn't even know that Mr. Sleepy Man was going to be like a video game character. I was just drawing the character, and I was making these funny like little music videos, like these 30-second like little YouTube videos, and in making that video while learning game development, I'm like, this might be a good idea for a game, just to play as a guy who's asleep and there's nightmares. Like, oh, that's a good theme. And then later on, I realized, oh wow, maybe I can make it kind of like that, Goose Game, kind of you're causing trouble, like Grand Theft Auto kind of thing. And it's like I don't plan these things out. It's like the creative process kind of just allows these things to happen. Like you're getting the ideas while you're doing it.
What first got you interested in game development?
It wasn't like an overnight thing. I've loved video games my entire life, but it always felt like something that I couldn't do. Like I always thought, oh, that's too hard. I can't make a game. Making games impossible. It's like, you put those like constructs in your head that you can't do it. And I think just like slowly I was just like, I downloaded Unity once, and then I was kind of dabbling in it in a little bit. But then I think I played like Hollow Knight, and like I realized like, wow, this game was made like two or three people, and they made it in Unity. I have that downloaded on my computer. Maybe I should try this out. And it's kind of like just like I slowly started learning how to code, and I don't know. I hope that's kind of an organized answer, but it isn't really like an overnight thing. It's like I love making things. I came from music. Like I've been making music forever. Like I was like a solo artist, just doing like production for probably from like 2013 to 2018, and that was like the main thing I was doing. And I was kind of like, I was in like the cycles of that, and it was just so not fun. It got to the point where I was making music and I was like, I don't even know if I want to make this kind of music. It's like you have to follow trends to even get noticed. You have to do all of these things. Like you have to walk in line to what everyone else is doing just to be considered. And like video games to me seemed like the place where you could do whatever you wanted. You can just make whatever you wanted to make and it didn't matter, and people would at least give it a chance. You know, you can make the dumbest thing, you can make the craziest thing, and people would at least like the posts. You know?
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've been playing music for a very, very long time, and I've found that whenever it is something that is kind of like, that fits very snugly into a genre that is already well established, people will recognize it, and otherwise it's very hard for them to even to notice it. Even it's like it doesn't even register. But games, there's a lot of games that are praised solely for being so outside of the box and being so unique, and yeah, that's funny. So that kind of brings me to another point. I've noticed like a bunch of your posts blow up on TikTok, especially things that kind of have like game dev tips and stuff. Obviously, like people are finding out about the game, but do you think it's getting people to play the game?
Well, right now I'm doing the Patreon, and the response in the last month has been pretty good. Like my Patreon was like on maybe $15 a month. Now it's like over $100. So in 1 month, like for me, like, oh wow, I'm getting over $100 a month from Patreon. That's amazing. That feels great. I would like to create a new demo soon, like once I get a lot of this test building done, and I think that would drive people more to the Steam page, because the block of having money, like having people have to pay to play it, there's not going to be that much of a response in general, because most of the people on TikTok, they might just be kids who don't even have money. So it's like finding the adult that will be willing to buy the game, and like that's just hard. Like I can even talk about my plans for release with Mr. Sleepy Man, because I might go down the route where I just have like a glorified free version of the game that's basically just a demo with extra content that, you know, is tied to the actual progress of the game, and then the actual game content would be like DLC. That's a whole nother thing that I could get into, but I don't know if you want to hear me ramble for 30 minutes about just random.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's so. The other thing I wanted to talk about was something that really caught my eye was you made a post recently where you said, "What does it even mean to release your game?" And you know, talking about not needing to ship a game to get into players' hands, and how it's just, you know, there's different rules now.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. So you know, but how do you personally want to navigate that? You know?
Yeah, like everyone is an ant marching in line, dun, 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 and it's like I have to put my game on Steam and I have to sell it for $20 because that's what everyone does, and this is what the industry is. And I have publishers talk to me. It's like, and like I've had publishers and I've like talked to them, and I've had like meetings and meetings and meetings with publishers, and it's like they start to create these plans for your game, and it's like, in this month this is what you're doing, and at this month we're locking all the content because we have to ship the game on Steam, and this is the way the industry works, and you have to do it in all these different steps. And it's like, why are you doing this? I mean, it made sense in 2003 when you had to physically ship a game and you couldn't update the game and the game was done, but now the physical version is just like a key. It doesn't even matter. So I look at a game like Fortnite, love it or hate it, but that game was in early access to like 2020. What does early access even mean?
Right.
Like early access is also just like a stigma. Like I would never put Mr. Sleepy Man in early access, because then people would put it in that box of, oh, this is an early access game. Like no. Like all this stuff is dumb. All these labels are dumb. Like if people are playing it and you're getting money, the game is technically released.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like all this other stuff is dumb because people, like even The Last of Us, this new Last of Us port, it's so broken. Like all these AAA companies are releasing broken games.
Yeah, that's something that's really bothered me. Like the GTA Definitive Edition was almost all of the coverage I saw on that game was just talking about how broken it was. Everybody was kind of trying to cash in on doing like the compilations of all the wacky looking bugs and stuff. But the game sold like crazy. Yeah,
at this point, that stuff might be a marketing ploy, because I would never hear about that game unless there were shitty bugs. Like on Twitter, it's like that's a Twitter algorithm thing. Like people love to shit on your game because of bugs. But people don't realize on Twitter, when they're shitting on something, you're actually promoting that game. You're promoting that game in the algorithm. You're making it trend.
Yeah.
So it could, at this point, like, the marketing teams of these games are like, well, we might as well just ship it unreleased because it's, just doing more QA is going to cost us money, and we want people to talk about the game.
And it clearly didn't affect the sales negatively, which is shocking to me. I couldn't believe that game actually did so well, and
yeah,
there's very little incentive then to do better because what's the point? The point is to sell the game. It's not. There's nothing further.
You have to learn early on that you don't get rewarded for effort in this world. People don't care about how hard you tried on something. No one can see how much effort you've put into a game. No one knows how many hours I spent painting the stripes on Mr. Sleepy Man. No one fucking cares. They're just gonna play it, and if it's funny, they'll laugh. If it's a broken game, it's broken. And if they like it, they like it. They hate it, they hate it. It does, like, at the end of the day, to get people to buy the thing, you gotta get people to play it. I don't know.
Speaking on the game itself, I played through some of the beta build and some of the demo.
Yeah.
What are some of the influences that you're bringing into that game, and like, what do you hope to accomplish with it?
I hope that it's not going to be broken when I release the game. But a lot of these discussions of releasing the game broken, like I might release it sooner than I thought because like these things might not matter that much. It's kind of sad thinking of it that way, but I want to test the game. I want to make sure things are working. I want to drive the community a little more because you can only promote a game that no one can play for so long. I think really it's a QA outreach and just to kind of get things working.
The game kind of feels to me like it really reminds me of sort of like the N64 era kind of collectathon type games, but with a lot more interactivity. I struggle to even remember exactly what games I'm thinking of, but I remember playing those games sometimes, and it's like there'd be maybe even like Conquer or something where there's like a very specific mechanic or a very specific quest or function that you have to fulfill, and like just discovering those things and figuring them out and seeing the different characters and sort of like one-off, like making the pizza, I'll say, like in the beta right now.
Yeah.
That's all really fun. And what's pushing you to like kind of go for that genre? Is that something that you've been into like before, or is that just like what's drawing you to that?
I love everything N64. The game is definitely very Mario 64 inspired, Banjo-Kazooie. Even like it's a lot like Zelda too. I'm not really going into it thinking like, oh, this is the game I'm making. Mm-hmm. It's a 3D platformer. I have to follow all the rules of a 3D platformer. I have to check off all the boxes. It's like I'm trying to like break down all of those genres like in my head and think about what should I take from those genres? What should I come up with on my own? Because there's something like innately just fun about collecting things. But if that's all the game is, it's like that kind of feels empty to me. Like in Mario, yeah, you can just go and collect stars and that could be the game because Mario's Mario. But I can't just like do that. I would feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself if that's all I was doing. Like the making a pizza thing, it's like I'm not going in thinking like, well, what would be the best thing to do in a game? I'm just like, oh, it's funny to make a pizza. Let's just make the pizza. And he says funny things when you get the pizza ingredients. Okay, cool. It's like it's a lot of it really is just in the moment creativity. And I think being a solo developer, I have that freedom to kind of just do whatever I want and like not have to like report to higher ups. Like, can I make this decision? Can I do this? Because in a lot of game development studios, everything is so sectioned off. Like a game designer and an artist may never even talk to each other. They may never meet. There's everything is in their own little box, and everyone who's doing the game design is doing game design. Everyone who's doing a level design is doing level design. The artists are doing their thing, and I think that fucks things up because you need everything to kind of bleed together. I want the level to reflect the comedy of the game. I want the writing to influence the objects that I'm going to put in the game. There's one line that Tony Pizza says And this is just like an improv that the voice actor gave to me.
Oh, get back here, you little pizza. Oh. My wife's been busting out the divorce papers lately. She said a man can't make pizza and children at the same time. She broke my heart.
It's just like this funny random line. And like that inspired me to put these lawyer scales in that level. It's like, okay, maybe his dreams are affecting the actual design of the world, and it's just like one throwaway line kind of inspires stupid crap like that. And I feel like if you had a whole team of 100 people making a game, like that stuff wouldn't happen.
I do think a lot about a lot of my favorite games were created by smaller teams, especially smaller teams that were all working in the same space and able to talk and have interactions that then influence the project they're working on. And it's not just like, segmented things or remote work, or
especially today. Yeah. Everything's so remote.
I think there's a way maybe for creativity to kind of transcend that and for people to learn how to navigate those things and create really great games still. But I do think it's more of a struggle and maybe more rare than it would be if people were just able to be a little bit more holistic in their approach.
It's not black and white. There's definitely things about my process that are just not efficient at all. Being one person doing everything, it's like, I've been spending the last 2 or 3 days just working on music for the next test build, and nothing else in the game is being worked on because I'm one person and I'm doing the music, and there's a bunch of other things that need to be done before next week. So if you have a team of people, it'd be great to get everything together, but it is what it is.
I guess this is kind of a two-part question. One, do you A, and then B, how do you kind of self-impose deadlines and milestones for yourself when you're holding yourself accountable?
Yeah.
Beyond that, where do you think is the next what's next for the game? Where are we at in the sort of roadmap as you can see it at the moment?
I would say the test build stuff, the Patreon stuff, definitely helps me with deadlines, because I know every month I have to have this section of the game done and ready to play. And in terms of the roadmap, it's pretty close. It's always hard to, this is so hard to tell because I'm one person working on it and I never know how long things are going to take. There's some story stuff I need to wrap up. The biggest level in the game needs a shit ton of playtesting. But there's no more big levels that I have to make. If I'm physically creating a new level in Unity, it would be just some transition level or small little platforming level just to kind of fill it out a little more. But for the most part, the mechanics are done. I don't think I'm making any new characters. If I'm making any new characters, it would have to have such a purpose in the game, but I can't even see myself doing that. Yeah, I feel just saying here it is on Steam for $20. I feel like that's just not the way to do it. I don't know. It's I'm also I don't have the experience as these senior marketing people at all these AAA companies who know what they're doing. But I feel you just need to give it to people, and at the same time, I need to I need this to be. Because I've been putting so much time into this game, I would be doing a disservice to myself if I wasn't pricing it at the correct price for myself. But at the same time, I love Mr. Sleepy Man, and I love the world that I've made, and I'm always open to doing more, and I would like to do more stuff, and I'm trying to find a model that kind of checks off all those boxes for me. There's a theme in the game of the TV, Mr. Sleepy Man gets pulled to the TV. It's very reminiscent of this very 90s cartoon aesthetic. So even having different episodes of the game where it would be Mr. Sleepy Man, go back to bed, and that's maybe $5 or $10 and someone would buy that, and then maybe there's like a base free game where there's like some kind of music video level or something that's essentially an ad for the paid content, that could be something that I go down. Like, that might be the road I go down. Because I have to think about just driving engagement towards the app. Because if I go down that model, even someone who plays it for free and never spends a cent on Mr. Sleepy Man, well, it's still benefiting me because they're driving engagement on the app, and that would improve the Steam algorithm. But there's also the stigma of just a free game, like having a game that's free. I don't know. I might have to just like not even think about that side of it. But this is just the stuff that I'm going around and around in my head.
Right.
Like, what is the best thing? Because you can't. This can't be a rash decision. I can't just say, "Oh, this is how I'm doing it," and then not think about it anymore.
Right. I mean, there definitely is a stigma with the free games or early access games where I've been. Sometimes I play an early access game and I'm just like stunned by how good it is because I'm expecting it to be busted. And I've definitely, I know a lot of players have been burnt by early access games that I'm sure there's always good intentions, but they're never finished. And then you've basically bought into a promise that was never fulfilled, and that kind of just hurts everyone else down the line. But I do like the idea there of, whether it is a free game or an episodic thing. It reminds me of, when I first got into gaming, when I first got into PC gaming, I was playing a lot of shareware demos. Yeah. And I'd kind of be like, hey, here's the thing. I'm seeing it, I'm playing it, I'm talking about it. And if you want the next episode, or if you want, the sort of expansion packs, or whatever that was, or different map packs, I'm thinking like, like Duke Nukem and Duke Nukem 3D or Wolfenstein and Doom, like those early games I was playing in my early years. That was a model that I think worked really well, and kind of, you don't see, I mean, it became less and less the norm, the shareware thing especially.
There's a lot of ways to think about it.
That's very, I think that's a good way to put it. There's a lot of ways to think about it.
It's hard.
Is there a game that you think is sort of underlooked that more people should check out?
Have you seen, what is it? Webbing Journey, the spider game? Have you seen that? Oh, you should check that out. They're on TikTok. It's like a spider game, and you shoot a web.
All right.
You create a web, and you can climb on the web.
Cool. I'll check that out. All right. Well, that's all I really had today. Anything you want to sign off with?
Play Mr. Sleepy Man, or else I'm not going to be able to feed my kids that I don't have.
Cool. Thanks. So, that was my chat with Devin, the developer of Mr. Sleepy Man. There's a lot to chew on there. There's a lot of different ways to go about releasing a game today, and I'm curious what you think as a player or developer or publisher or whatever your role is in gaming. Have you had good experiences with early access? Have you ever supported a game directly through Patreon or some other crowdfunding source? What do you think? What does it mean for you to release a game? Is a game released because someone's playing it, or is a game released because it has a Steam page with an official commercial release? What does it mean today to you? Let's talk it out down in the comments. If you want to talk further, meet us over in the Discord. There's links below for the Discord and links below to learn more about Mr. Sleepy Man. I'm not trying to be a total shill for the game, but I think it rules. You should definitely try it out. There's a free demo, so no big commitments there, but if you want to go further, of course, you can, obviously. And if you want to go further to support Hidden Machine, throw this video a like, consider subscribing, and if you really want to go the extra mile, there's different ways to support us. We have a Patreon ourselves, as well as memberships on the channel. There's a lot of stuff in the backlog for you to check out. We got more developer interviews like this that we've done, and more coming soon. So, what more can I say? I'm giving you the big spiel. You know how it goes. Check it out, or don't, but either way, thanks for hanging out until now. See you later.